Welcome to the Quotive Corner. Today's quote is 9 words, and somehow those 9 words manage to reframe the entire relationship between time, effort, and persistence in a way that most motivational speeches spend 20 minutes trying to accomplish. Don't watch the clock. Do what it does. Keep going. That's Sam Levenson from his book, You Don't Have to Be in Who's Who to Know What's What, published in 1979. Levenson was an American humorist, writer, teacher, and television personality who grew up in Brooklyn, New York. He taught high school Spanish for over a decade before his wit and storytelling landed him on television in the 1950s, where he became a familiar presence on programs including The Ed Sullivan Show. He was the kind of writer who could get to the center of a human truth faster than almost anyone, often with humor, always with clarity. This line is a perfect example of both. Now, the quote. There are 2 instructions here, and a third that functions as the conclusion. They build on each other in a way that's easy to miss if you read it too quickly. The first instruction, don't watch the clock. Most people hear this as an anti-distraction note. Stop checking the time when you're supposed to be working, and that reading isn't wrong. Clock watching is the enemy of flow, that state of complete absorption in a task where time seems to disappear, and productivity deepens precisely because you have stopped tracking it. The person constantly glancing at the clock is measuring distance to the finish line rather than running the race, and the mental energy that goes into the measurement comes directly out of the energy available for the work. But there is a deeper reading available, one that connects to how people relate to time during genuinely difficult periods. Not a difficult afternoon, but a difficult season. The long stretch of a demanding project, a painful recovery, a period of grief or uncertainty or hard work that has no clear end date in sight. In those periods, clock watching takes on a different and more destructive form. It becomes the habit of measuring how much further there is to go, how long this has already lasted, how much longer it might last, how far away the relief still seems. And that kind of temporal accounting, when practiced relentlessly, tends to make the difficulty feel larger and longer than it actually is. The watch period always seems to move more slowly than the one you're fully inhabiting, which is what makes the second instruction so precise. Do what it does. This is the pivot, the move that makes the quote more than a simple persistence reminder. Levenson isn't just saying ignore the clock, he's saying imitate it. And the clock does one thing, without variation, without complaint, without stopping to assess how tired it is or how far it has come or how much longer it has to run. It keeps moving forward, one tick at a time, not in leaps, not in heroic bursts, steadily, continuously, without drama and without negotiation. The clock doesn't have good days and bad days. It doesn't recalibrate based on how it feels about the passage of time. It simply moves because moving forward is what it is. That's the behavior Levenson is recommending. Not the clock as a measurement device, but the clock as a model of sustained, undramatic forward motion. The person who has internalized this isn't grinding through the work with clenched teeth determination. They've simply made forward motion their default state, the same way the clock's default state is the next tick. The question of whether to keep going has been removed from the equation. Of course you keep going. That's what you do. That's what the clock does. The third piece, keep going, is almost redundant once you've understood the first 2. It's the consequence of doing what the clock does. You keep going because that's the only option the clock has, and you've decided to operate the same way. This is a fundamentally different framing of persistence than the one most people are handed. The conventional framing makes persistence a heroic act, something you summon through willpower and grit in the face of difficulty, something that requires a special quality of character that some people have and others don't. That framing is both motivating and exhausting, because it requires you to keep locating the heroism every time the difficulty returns, which it always does. Levenson's framing removes the heroism entirely. It makes persistence mechanical rather than dramatic. Not a character quality you have to keep summoning, but a default mode you've adopted. The clock doesn't summon courage every time it needs to tick. It just ticks. The person who has genuinely internalized this doesn't face a fresh decision every morning about whether to keep going. They've already made the decision, structurally, in how they've set up their relationship to their own effort. Keeping going is just what happens next. In a prior episode, we discussed how James Clear made a similar point about systems versus goals, that what you do on an ordinary day, by default, determines outcomes more reliably than what you intend on your best days. Levenson is describing the habit of forward motion as its own kind of system, not the heroic push, but the steady tick, not the sprint when motivation is high, but the consistent movement regardless of whether motivation showed up that morning. There is also something worth naming about what the clock doesn't do. It doesn't look back. It doesn't catalog how far it's come and feel either proud or discouraged about the distance. It doesn't compare its current position to where it expected to be by now. It has no opinion about the pace. It just moves to the next moment, and then the next, with complete indifference to everything except the fact of movement itself. There's a kind of freedom in that indifference, a release from the mental overhead of constantly evaluating your own progress, that Levenson is quietly recommending alongside the persistence. Now, the honest counterpoint, because this show doesn't skip it. Pure forward motion, without reflection or course correction, can keep you moving in the wrong direction with great efficiency. The clock doesn't evaluate whether it's pointing at the right wall. It doesn't assess whether the task it's timing is worth doing. Persistence, as a value, is only as good as the direction it's being applied in. Will Rogers told us in a previous episode that when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging, which is, in a sense, the anti-clock instruction. Sometimes the most useful thing is not to keep going, but to pause, look up, and reassess whether you're going somewhere worth going. So, Levenson's clock is most valuable when the direction is right and the work is sound, when the only variable is whether you'll show up for it consistently over time. In those circumstances, the instruction is clean and complete. Don't measure, don't evaluate, don't negotiate with yourself about whether today is a good day for it. Do what the clock does. Keep going. Sam Levenson built his career out of finding the human truth in the ordinary, the Brooklyn childhood, the large immigrant family, the classroom, the daily texture of a life lived with eyes open. This particular truth is one of the most useful he ever compressed into a sentence. Not because it's complicated, but because it's exactly right. Thanks for spending a few minutes here at the Quotive Corner. If this one landed for you, especially if you're in the middle of something long, something hard, something without a clear end date yet, take it with you. And don't forget, wisdom isn't in the quote, it's in the reflection. I'll see you in the next one.